Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel. And this is a versus video between two of the best shoes that you can get right now. And that's just in my opinion, but I really like playing in both of these shoes. So this is the Nike KD14 coming in at 150 bucks. And this is the Nike Zoom GT Cut coming in at 170 bucks. So there is a $20 price difference. And if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description box, but let's get it started right away with the Traction. So as far as the traction goes for both of these shoes, they're both top tier performers. The KD14 is using like this wavy line pattern. We got some ovals here in the forefoot. They're very long lines and they have very deep grooves. They have an incredible bite, especially on a clean court. As far as dust pickup goes, it rarely picks up any dust. You pretty much never have to wipe in the KD14s. As far as the durability goes, the durability probably isn't the best, although the occasional, very occasional use on an outdoor court should be okay. But for a main shoe on the outdoor surface, it's probably not the best idea. For the GT Cut, the traction is also top tier, right? So the stop is amazing, especially on the clean court. They both have a very loud squeak too. But for dust pickup, the GT Cut picks up a little bit more dust than the KD14, just a tiny bit. I just found myself wiping a little bit more than the KD14, but it feels like the durability will be better in the GT Cut because especially in the highway areas, there are more grooves. So since there's more grooves, that obviously means there's better durability, and the rubber seems a good amount harder than the KD14, so that's good. So as far as performance goes, it all depends on where you're playing, right? So durability, like I said, is a little bit better in the GT Cut. If you're playing on a clean court, they're both amazing. If you're playing on a dusty court, the GT Cut is still pretty good. You'll have to wipe occasionally, but not that much. The KD14 is just a really good bite on a dusty setting. So for me, I've been playing on a clean court, so they're both really nice. But I also play on a dusty court sometimes, and the KD14 is just a little bit better for that. But nonetheless, they're both top tier for traction. Alright, moving on to the heel to toe transition. So the heel to toe transition is pretty important for me, especially running down the court. I like to have a very smooth heel to toe transition, very fluid movement, right? So here in the KD14, we have a fully exposed midsole, especially here in the heel. So that allows the heel to compress when you're running down the court. Feels super smooth. You have a nice curved shape here in the forefoot as well, and you have a lot of forefoot flex. So the KD14 is pretty much as smooth as it gets. The Zoom GT Cut, on the other hand, the heel is quite caged. There's a lot of rubber coming up. We have this red plastic piece to cage the cushion here on the lateral side of the heel, so it's a little clunky here in the heel, right? Not terrible because we have a curved shape, but it still feels a little clunky, so I don't like that as much. But we have a nice curved shape here in the forefoot and a lot of forefoot flex, so it's still overall pretty damn smooth, but the KD14 just feels a little bit smoother. Alright, moving on to the cushioning setup. So the cushioning setup in both of these shoes are top tier. They're really nice, but they're kind of the opposite, right? As far as the KD14, you feel the Zoom Strobel right underneath your foot, and here in the Zoom GT Cut, you feel the React right underneath your foot, which is pretty much a foam, right? So here in the KD14, you have the Zoom Strobel unit, which is full length and feels really bouncy. It also gives you good impact protection and also good responsiveness. And then you have the soft, full-length Cushlon midsole, which is really soft. It feels nice. Some people, I have a few friends that say it's a little too soft for them, but they are a little bit bigger. For me, it felt amazing. Impact protection, especially on heel strikes, is great. I love the compression from the midsole, especially here in the heel, and then the Zoom Strobel unit feels nice, right? Both of these shoes have amazing court feel. I would say it's pretty much the same. And then here in the Zoom GT Cut, you have the full length React drop-in midsole, which is right underneath your foot. So you have a little bit more of a soft feeling for underfoot cushioning. And then you have the Zoom Strobel unit, which you can also feel because the React midsole is quite thin, right? So it feels a little different, as far as the underfoot cushioning and then the foam and all that, and the Zoom unit. But they also feel quite similar because it's soft and also bouncy from the Zoom unit, right? One thing that I don't like about the Zoom GT Cut, which also had something to do with the heel to toe transition, is there's not a whole lot of compression from the midsole, or there's really none, right? So it just feels better. I mean, you feel your heel and the underfoot cushioning being comfortable, which is nice, and then your foot digs into the Zoom unit, right? But I just like the feeling of an exposed midsole and then the midsole compressing, so it just doesn't feel as clunky. Just because of that, the KD14 just in my opinion feels a little bit better, but they're both really nice cushioning setups. Alright, moving on to the materials. So as far as the quality goes, I would say the GT Cut has better quality. You know, we have pretty much like a Flyknit material. It looks premium and it feels a lot nicer than the KD14. And here for the toe box, it's a little bit thicker. It feels like there's a little bit of a foam insert here, but you know, it just feels nicer than the KD14. The KD14, the material just doesn't feel as quality, but it is thinner, right? Especially here in the toe box. So if you like the more minimal material here in the toe box, the KD14 is better, but the Zoom GT Cut has better quality. As far as the tongue goes, I would say they both have an average amount of padding, and then for the ankle area, they also have pretty much the same amount of padding, I would say. So they both feel pretty nice and cozy here in the back of the shoe. And of course, the KD14 has this like a pretty useless strap. And also another thing that's annoying about the KD14 is that this Velcro does screw up your laces, so just watch out for that. And also it is kind of annoying when you're lacing up the shoe, but it really doesn't affect performance, so there's that. But like I said, if you want the overall more minimal material, the KD14 is a better choice. If you want the better quality material, and also the Zoom GT Cut is still a minimal feeling material, then go with the GT Cut. Alright, moving on to the fit, they both fit me really well. I went true to size for both of the shoes, and the KD14 fits me really well true to size lengthwise, and so does the GT Cut. As far as the toe space goes, here in the toe box, the KD14 seems a little bit more like snug. The Zoom GT Cut is still snug, don't get me wrong, but it feels like there's a little bit more space, a little bit more room than the KD14. The KD14 is just really snug, so just watch out for that. But for the most part, they're both pretty damn snug, right? And as far as the width goes, the KD14 is slightly narrow, and then the Zoom GT Cut I would say is around a little bit wider than the KD4, but still a little narrow. And then both of the shoes stay pretty narrow throughout the midfoot, and then they both fit really well here in the ankle area, especially with the padding, and also cups your heel down for better heel lockdown. So for me, the fit was amazing in both of the shoes. Alright, moving on to the support and lockdown, I had no issues in either of the shoes. So for lateral containment, the KD14, I was locked in, my foot was not going anywhere, and the same thing for the Zoom GT Cut. There's one thing I love about the Zoom GT Cut though, is the actual drop-in midsole, right? So the React has this kind of like texture to it, especially here in the forefoot, that just grips your sock so that it like your foot just stays on top of the shoe. And also for lateral containment, you have all this plastic and also the foam midsole coming up acting as a sidewall, so your foot's not moving anywhere in the Zoom GT Cut either. So for lateral containment, they're both good. And as far as lateral stability goes, they're both really nice, right? I had no issues with lateral instability, and they're both like pretty wide shoes, you know? They don't really have like super wide outriggers, but you know, for the most part, they're both wide and you're low to the ground. So I had no issues with lateral instability. All right, moving on to the weight of the shoe, we got the Zoom GT Cut. I think it's like 13 point something, right? 13.26 ounces versus the KD14 is like 12.5, right? Yeah, 12.59 ounces. And it definitely feels a little bit lighter, right? So the KD14, it just feels super responsive and you feel really light on your feet. And it's kind of like an extension of your foot, you know? You really never have to worry about the KD14. The Zoom GT Cut, same thing. You know, you feel really quick, you feel low to the ground, and you feel very responsive, especially with that zoom unit, right? But it feels a little bit clunkier, especially here in the heel, and also a little bit bulkier kind of like underneath your foot. You know, it's a little bottom heavy, especially with all this plastic and also this rubber outsole kind of like protruding out, and the rubber outsole is a little thick, you know, so it feels a little bottom heavy. The KD14, I feel like the weight distribution is a little bit better. So if you want the overall lighter and more minimal shoe, the KD14 is the better option. As far as ventilation goes, they're both good. You know, the material is really thin here in the KD14, so it doesn't really retain heat. And as far as airflow, there's not a whole lot, just a tiny bit. But the KD14 still nice. And then the Zoom GT Cut, we have these like 4 holes here in the toe box, and then we have like 2 holes here in the tongue, and the material is quite thin, so it doesn't retain heat that well either. So they're both like pretty good for ventilation. And as far as the aesthetics go, I like the Zoom GT Cut better. You know, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of looks like a modern day Kobe to me, you know, like has that like soccer shoe vibe, you know. The KD14 I just don't really like as far as the aesthetics go. Maybe it's just a color, but I've seen, you know, some of the other colors that are coming out. It looks okay, but you know, in this versus video, the Zoom GT Cut, just in my opinion, looks better. So tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, so overall, they're both top tier shoes. I absolutely love playing in both of the shoes, but the KD14 is a little bit better in my opinion. I just like to play in the KD14 a little bit more, right? So I would say like 2 things, you know, it just feels a little bit more minimal and also lighter, and also I guess less clunky, you know. But also, I like the cushioning setup because of the fully exposed midsole with that cush line. It just feels better than the clunkiness that you get in the heel from the Zoom GT Cut. But that's pretty minor, you know, it's not a huge deal. Anyways, also the KD14 is $20 cheaper. So, I mean, it has better performance in my opinion. So the KD14 is the clear winner in this versus showdown, right? But don't get me wrong, the Zoom GT Cut is still a phenomenal shoe and you can't go wrong with it, right? But anyways, that about concludes this versus video. Again, if you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave links below. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.